everybody, welcome to 2ZQ Hot Takes, where we discuss issues both big and small. I am your host, the very handsome Tim Kirk, and this time I'll be talking about return to office mandates, remote working, coffee badging, Zoom tune-outs, office etiquette, personality traits that hold you back, and more. An ultimatum earlier this year from Dell to force its workers to return to the office has apparently failed. Even after the company warned employees that they would risk forfeiting promotions if they kept working from home, nearly half of the company's workforce elected to remain remote, according to data seen by Business Insider. Roughly a dozen Dell employees told the publication that remote work gives them more free time and saves money. Others said they weren't pursuing a promotion, and being in the office made no sense when they would only see their colleagues on Zoom calls. And there are two bullet points. Many Dell employees who chose to work from home said that they were looking for jobs at other companies that didn't have in-office requirements, and companies argue that bringing people back to the office fosters collaboration and engagement, but research suggests RTO mandates ultimately aren't effective. Now, from the University of Pittsburgh's University Times, study on return to office mandates gets international attention, and this is from April of 2024. If you had any doubt about how important the issue of hybrid versus in-office work is in the United States and internationally, you need look no further than the interest Mark Ma's research on the subject has gotten. Ma, an associate professor of business administration for Pitt Business, and Yu-Ye Ding, a PhD student in Katz Graduate School of Business, looked at Standard & Poor's 500 firms, the largest companies listed on U.S. stock exchanges, that had implemented return-to-work mandates, forcing employees to be in the office 5 days a week. The results showed that while many of the companies said that they were bringing employees back to the office to improve the bottom line, there were no significant changes in financial performance or firm values after the mandates were implemented. But there was a sharp decrease in employees' job satisfaction. Before the pandemic, you wake up in the morning and you automatically assumed that you should go into the office to work, Ma said. Now you know that there's another option. You can work as efficiently as in the office. People know that this is viable and that the environment has a lot of benefits. At Pitt, hybrid work seems here to stay. Human Resources said that of the approximately 8,000 staff working at the university, 5,277 have flexible work agreements as of January 2024. About 13% of Pitt staff work fully remote and 52% work hybrid schedules. Ma's research was posted in January, and since then, the paper has been downloaded more than 17,000 times from the Social Science Research Network website and has been featured in news articles around the world, from the Washington Post, NPR, Forbes and Business Insider to the BBC, the Australian Financial Times, and many more. As a professor, Ma said he always hopes his research gets attention and has an impact in making society better. But I didn't expect that it would get so much attention all around the world, he said. That means this is something that people all around the world care about. I have to agree. The research found that about 30% of the Standard & Poor's 500 companies had imposed a return-to-office mandate by the end of November 2023. Ma said before the end of 2023, several presidents and CEOs were pushing for workers to return to the office, but he thinks that trend has reversed. Not only because of our research, he said, there are many studies about this, and also companies have their own internal data. He cited the case of the job search company Glassdoor, which has gone fully remote after realizing that remote jobs posted on their site got 50% more applicants and ones with better qualifications. The companies that have forced employees back to the office and not improved the bottom line now face a dilemma. Many of the CEOs of these larger companies have been very public about their return to office announcements, often scapegoating remote employees for a company's bad performance. In almost every firm that imposed a mandate, there is a crisis that leads to conflicts between managers and employees, Ma said. But now I feel it's too late for these managers to back off, because if they backtrack, they're admitting they made a huge mistake previously, and that would be the end of their career at the firm. Ego and your perceived identity. Even before the pandemic increased the prevalence of remote or hybrid work, Yahoo's CEO encountered this problem. In 2013, Marissa Mayer ordered all employees to be in the office every day. In the end, Yahoo lost 30% of its employees, and Mayer had to step down. The new CEO backtracked on the policy. I don't think we are going back, parentheses, to fully in-office work, Ma said. The biggest resistance to remote work has come from the commercial real estate companies, but he said recent news stories show that even they are also realizing that they are losing the fight, because they are actively seeking government help to convert their offices to apartments. It's funny, you don't want to go to the office, but you want to live in one. Ma said he has gotten some pushback from company leaders, particularly about how to adequately train new employees right out of college when they are working remotely. And I have a few more articles which I will get to, which address this subject. He suggested to one person who was angry about remote work that he could tell new, younger employees to come back for training and give incentives to more experienced workers to be in the office as their mentors. He likes to point out to business owners that they can save money by minimizing office space, and it also benefits the company because employees experience less burnout and are more productive when their commuting time is minimized. Also, we have recently found that many firms ignore the environmental implications, Ma said. When you have thousands or millions of people get on the road 5 days a week during rush hour, that creates a lot of carbon emissions. If you give more flexibility, that's also good for the environment. What do you know? I agree. And what about those online meetings? Now, I also have another article to talk about that. Meanwhile, David Lebel, Associate Professor of Business Administration, has been looking at another aspect of remote or hybrid work, understanding the differences in communication between virtual and in-person meetings. When separate research has shown there is Zoom fatigue and a tendency towards passive disengagement during virtual meetings, Lebel's research found that there is a benefit to virtual meetings for certain people. We found that virtual meetings have a benefit in terms of, do people feel it's safe to speak up? He said, and then we find it especially for those people who are worried about negative outcomes at work. He said the main variable is psychological safety, which is perceptions of, do you think it's safe to speak up? Do you think you could speak up without criticism or negative reactions? Do you think you will be listened to? Lebel said they hope this launches more research on the types of people that are responding to meetings differently. Some of the practical implications, Lebel said, might be that some people contribute more to the conversation during online meetings than versus in person. And also that it might be easier to cold call on people who haven't spoken up during a virtual meeting. At the end of meetings, saying, "We haven't heard from you yet," Do you want to say something? Anecdotally, I found this works very much online, Level said. There are some times when this person is completely checked out, and as soon as I ask that, it's clear they had something, a question or something, and they say it right away. In person, I think I still get the shrugs. Some of the responses also were colored by what the subject of the meeting was and how long it lasted. It made me feel a little bit better that the way people were responding wasn't that this type of meeting is good for all of these things. It's still a meeting, he said. And that's that. So from Axios, 7/15/2024, workers are tuning out Zoom as number of meetings grows. Why it matters. A lack of participation in virtual meetings could be a sign that a worker is on her way out, or that there didn't need to be a meeting at all. Zoom in. Turning the camera off in a virtual meeting is correlated with employee attrition, per the research firm from an analytics firm called Viopta, which looked at data from 2023 and 2022 covering more than 40 million meetings. 40 million? At 11 large companies. That's a lot of meetings. Workers who wound up leaving their company within a year had their cameras on just 18.4% of the time in small group meetings. Those who remained at the company longer were on camera 32.5% of the time. That's a little bit in your face. Ha ha ha. The researchers also found participation in meetings has dropped. In 2023, the share of workers who stayed muted for the entirety of a meeting was 7.2%, up from 4.8% in 2022. Camera enablement rates fell slightly too. Workers are doing a lot more meetings. Yeah. In 2023, this really could be emails. In 2023, workers attended 10.1 virtual meetings a week, down slightly from 10.3 in 2022, but higher than in 2021 when the number was 8.3 and more employees were working from home. Our thought bubble: if the number of meetings is going up and participation is down, that may be a sign that there are too many meetings. No kidding. And people are feeling Zoom fatigue. The bottom line, meetings have always left a lot to be desired. Yes, and their aftermath as well. But before the Zoom times, it was hard to analyze how they worked and make targeted improvements. Now some large employers are starting to use data gleaned from virtual meetings to make improvements with an eye toward employee productivity and retention. It's a little bit on the big brotherly side to me. So now I'm going to talk about coffee badging. And this was posted on July 3rd. This came from a HuffPost writer by the name of Monica Torres. Okay, so coffee badging. Over 50% of hybrid workers admitted to partaking in a new controversial office trend, and this is why they're defending it. If employees are expected to swipe into the office, chances are some people are doing this. Do you swipe into your office building to meet your in-person mandate, but leave as soon as possible? There's a word for your covert strategy: coffee badging. It is where you show up to the office long enough for a coffee or a meeting expressly to fulfill in-office mandates while primarily continuing to work from home. This new workplace lingo was popularized by video conferencing company Owl Labs. The company defined it as showing face at the office and then leaving. In its 2023 report of 2,000 full-time U.S. workers, 58% of hybrid employees said that they were coffee badging, with an additional 8% saying that they were interested in trying it out. It reminds me of anti-LGBT people who are prominent in positions of authority, using the old saw that people would coerce each other into experimenting with homosexuality, saying, try it, you might like it. And as hybrid arrangements have become a more permanent feature of office life, Coffee badging is still here to stay. In a more recent June LinkedIn news poll of 1,568 people, 19% of LinkedIn users said they were still coffee badging into work. Amanda, a Chicago-based IT project manager for a health insurance company, is one of them. Her company has a hybrid policy, and Amanda, who asked to keep her last name private for her job, said managers are open with employees that badge swipes are being tracked for badge reports, which calculate the percentage of people in the office per week per month. Now, to me, it would seem that they would check the times people swiped in and the amount of time they actually spent in the office before going on a break, coming back in again, going out for lunch, checking back in again, and then ultimately leaving to go home. But I guess that's not calculated. Or maybe it is. Amanda has not had a conversation about her own attendance record, but knowing that her badge swipes could potentially result in a performance issue has made her diligent about commuting to the office because she does not want to have that conversation come up at all. If she could, she would be a 100% remote employee because she finds in-office days with commuting to be draining and a waste of time since her direct boss works in another city and she has video meetings with remote colleagues. I don't want to be here. I can do this from home, Amanda said. In this way, coffee badging in and out of work is a way to wrest control back and autonomy over how your job gets done. An employer may order some of my time, but not 1 second more than they must, is the strategic coffee badging philosophy. Well, woo. And it's not in employees' heads. Badge logs can result in real negative consequences to one's career. In January, one professional service firm reportedly showed some partners' analysis that linked office attendance from turnstile data to mid-year performance ratings. For her book, The Algorithm, How AI Decides Who Gets Hired, Monitored, Promoted, and Fired, and Why We Need to Fight Back Now, journalist Hilke Shellman interviewed a HR head who shared a story about a company making promotion and layoff decisions based on badge log data. They wanted to promote the people who had the longest hours at the office, so they looked at keycard swipe-in data, Shellman said about this company, which is what I thought people would do. And then who were the least productive people, and they were going to look at the badge data logs. But to be clear, your badge swipes are a flawed signal of your performance at work. Using badge swipes to determine productivity could harm people who are on medical leave or people who have obligations for caregiving, who have literally fewer chances to be at their desks than others. So why are employers so tempted to find deeper meaning with badge logs despite clear flaws? It might be because it's part of a growing field of people analytics. Companies want to use their data they have on their employees. Well, but a word of caution to the coffee badger. You do need to stay longer than just a cup of coffee because managers can easily look up how long you stayed at the office and may feel betrayed by you popping in and out. Now with digital technology, everything leaves a trace, and that trace can be checked by superiors, Shellman said. How to make coffee badging work for you? You can either go to the office begrudgingly or you can be pragmatic about the in-office mandate. The latter can be a helpful attitude adjustment. Try to reframe coffee badging so that you feel that you're making the most of the situation, suggested Archana Barathan, an executive coach at Columbia Business School. Barathan said that she would go to her office less than a required 3 days a week if she had a choice, but I would still go because I do see the benefit of it. Her role requires her to build and deepen relationships with colleagues, so she sees the face time as a boost, but she acknowledges that if she were an individual contributor who mostly did Zoom calls, her productivity might decrease. Barathan's advice to her fellow coffee badgers is to find ways to make time in office productive. She suggested scheduling meetings on in-person days. If you have the flexibility of choosing which days you need to be in, figure out how you can potentially combine your commute with other things that require attention in your personal life, like if you need to run errands, she said. Well, that's a helpful hint. And if you're a manager of a team that is coffee badging, you should look deeper into why this trend is happening. Great managers focus their teams on the highest impact actions. So my encouragement to any employer that sees employees going through the motions of meeting a minimum in-office expectation would be to consider whether the expectation is actually going to lead to impact, she continued. If the answer is yes, help your people recognize that so they spend more time in the office. And if the answer is no, I'd revisit the requirement. Here's a word to the wise. Coffee badging is not an accurate signal of someone's performance. Busyness is not the same as accomplishment. Seeing a coworker physically typing at their desk next to you does not mean they are actually working. So going to the next one, from July 15th, from Fast Company, new government data shows working from home is here to stay. Despite return to office mandates, new data shows that many Americans are still doing some or all of their work at home. 4 years ago, a sizable percentage of the U.S. workforce was trying to figure out how to get their jobs done from their homes. Today, many of those people couldn't imagine working anywhere else. New data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that 35% of employed Americans do some or all of their work from home now. Those 2023 numbers are roughly the same as those found in 2022, when 34% did some or all of their work from home. That indicates that remote and hybrid work arrangements have become part of the normal state of the modern working world. Pre-pandemic, the number of people who worked from home hovered at 24%. The BLS data shows that home-based workers average a 5.1-hour workday compared to 7.9 hours for those who were in an office. That could reflect situational efficiencies home-based workers have, such as fewer meetings and distractions from coworkers, as well as a heightened ability to focus due to their environment. Well, I can't argue with that. Demographically, home-based workers of both genders worked roughly the same amount of time, both in overall percentage and hours per day. Among workers in the office environment, though, men tended to work 36 minutes more per day than women, the survey showed, which the BLS said was a reflection of the fact that more women have part-time jobs than men. The vast majority of home-based workers were full-timers. Most home workers were fairly high earners as well. The BLS says that more than 54% of the people who work at home earn $1,876 or more dollars per week, putting them near or above the $100,000 a year mark. Almost half of all the people who work from home reported having multiple jobs, and more than half of the self-employed workforce ran their businesses from their home. Remote work seems a high priority for job seekers today. A Flex Jobs study found that 65% of people say they want to work remotely full-time. That's 2/3. Employers, though, remain still resistant to the idea, though the return to office movement continues to move slower than most bosses would like. In early July, Castle's Get America Back to Work monitor showed an average of 53.6 desk occupancy at offices as detected by the use of employee check-ins with security devices, like coffee badging. That number was slightly lower than previous weeks, likely due to the midweek 4th of July holiday. The average hovered in the 60% range in the previous 3 weeks. At companies that are trying to get workers to return to the office, employees know how challenging it can be to convince your employer to let you work from home. Experts say your best bet, though, is to point to your productivity levels during the time you were working from home, as well as how well you collaborated with coworkers despite your locations. However, bringing up personal circumstances is generally not effective, they caution. While many CEOs want workers back in the office to the point that 30% say they will threaten to terminate employees who don't return, studies have shown that allowing employees to work remotely or adopt a hybrid work model makes them more likely to be loyal to a company moving forward. Stanford researchers earlier this year discovered that letting someone work from home just 2 days per week made them 35% less likely to submit their resignation. As an added bonus, those workers are more likely to get things done as well, An October 2020 Gartner study found that performance improves when employees are given flexibility over where, when, and how much they work. Well, how about that? And there's an article about motivation versus discipline, and I'm only going to quote a couple of little things from it too, because the title is Motivation versus Discipline, which helps you get further. As the author writes, there is something wrong with our society. A fact I have been aware of ever since I realized the difference between motivation and discipline. While we are literally bathing in motivational slogans that promise to help us go outside of our comfort zone, people fail to permanently change their condition because they are not disciplined enough to embrace the struggle associated with a life well lived. And I can't tell you how many people who are motivational speakers get people all hyped up for 45 minutes, and then it's like going to a chiropractor or acupuncturist. It makes you feel great for 2 or 3 days, and then it all wears off. For example, many people have great intentions about how their lives should unfold. Common desires we all have are, I want to have a sexy body. I want to travel the world. I want to own pretty much everything that catches my interest. I want to win the admiration of half the world and build great things. I want to work a stable yet adventurous job where my boss treats me like a friend, but not exactly like a friend, because I also want him to respect me and pay me a shitload of cash. Sadly, these wants rarely translate into actionable steps that no one should pursue daily. They are mere statements, not building blocks for a brighter future. So, while it's easy to feel motivated to change your world, you simply open your go-to social media and see how a 17-year-old made $50K in one day selling PDF downloadables. Then you feel excited about it for a couple of days, trying to replicate the conditions of the successful superstars online. Alas, your motivation diminishes the moment a challenge arises, the moment you realize that self-improvement is never, ever truly complete. Motivation can help you feel emotionally aroused to do something, to make changes in your life. However, only through self-discipline you actually accomplish what you dream about. Many people believe that motivation and discipline are the same thing. They use them interchangeably, thinking that motivation is discipline and discipline is motivation. Though they have some touching points, they mean quite different things. Motivation is what gets you started. Discipline is what keeps you going. Now, the difference between motivation and discipline. Motivation defined. Motivation is the reason for which humans and other animals initiate, continue, or terminate a behavior at a given time. It's like a force that pulls a person to do or not do something. Discipline. Abraham Lincoln famously said, discipline is choosing between what you want now and what you want most. Discipline is your ability to direct your actions toward the things that matter most amidst the pile of distractions. It's about staying committed, creating systems, making consistent choices, and resisting impulses that might hinder your progress. Well, there you go. Now, in one of the stranger changes of culture, now this is from LinkedIn, supposedly updated a month ago. Offices battle telephonophobia, which is a word I never heard of before today. Today's smartphones can do so many things. Some people are reluctant to use them for ordinary phone conversations. Telephonophobia is proving to be a growing problem as workers, particularly those under 40, would rather text, Zoom, Slack, or email before calling, according to the Wall Street Journal. Some are nervous about what they want to say or concerned about phrasing it in the wrong way. Others are actually seeking out therapy to ease their anxiety about making calls and even guidance on how to end one. One therapist charges $3,000 for half-day workshops to combat phone fears, or $195 per hour for one-on-one coaching. Imagine what they get for coaching you on tying your shoes. Data traffic on mobile apps jumped to 73.7 trillion megabytes in 2022 from 1.5 trillion in 2012, according to CTIA, a wireless communications trade group. I did not know this actually existed. and there are people commenting on it. One person said, "It is a real clinical term for phone avoidance, and apparently it is pervasive, frustrating many in the workplace." It's not just because some have grown up with texting as their primary means of communication. People just don't know how to talk on the phone. Many fear they may say the wrong thing or express concern that they don't know how to end a call. Others need the chance to really think of what they want to say and edit and re-edit their messages. The spontaneity of a call is overwhelming and stress-inducing. Well, this is so strange. Because there's an article from LA Times that says, "We don't know how to behave in the office anymore," bosses says. The solution? Charm school. You walk into the office kitchen to heat up your lunch and are greeted by a mess. Your coworker Bridget has left the communal area in disarray again. We know Bridget's. You're frustrated. Where do you go from here? Do you shame Bridget and make her feel bad? Ooh, that might be opening up Pandora's box. That might make you feel righteous in the moment, but is it actually helpful? Are you helping to improve your workplace and, most important, ensuring a clean kitchen next time by unloading on her? What's the end goal here? This is a hypothetical scenario. Actually, I've lived through this many, many times with a lot of complaining people. And I was the one who had to help them chill out. One used frequently by business etiquette trainer Kate Zabriskie as she helps office workers and managers think through best practices for harmonious and productive workplaces. I gotta tell you, some people are just slobs and they have absolutely no consideration. It's not just this, it's all over the office. They just don't care. But workers throughout the US are dealing with their own Bridgets every day, or are one. See? As companies increasingly recall workers to the office, employees and managers alike are finding that the pandemic made us all a little rusty with in-person conduct. Co-workers are too loud at their desks. We've all had those people who have standing desks, who get on calls and speak over everybody and the entire row they work on, so everybody hears them having a conversation with 20 people in another location. People are on their phones during meetings. I remember when people would sneak it, they'd look down and try to be furtive about it, but everyone kind of knew that they were texting. Shaking hands is no longer a given. Small talk at networking events is awkward. Boss's solution to the stilted behavior? Charm school. Huh. Well, I have to say, when I was younger, people were kind of proud of being louche and disaffected by the environment they were in. And as we got older, we all started caring more because we have other concerns and security issues that we need to address. And younger people being indifferent or somewhat debauched about their attitudes towards life. At that point in life, everyone is. It seems to irritate us as we get older. More than 6 in 10 companies will send their employees to office etiquette classes by 2024, according to a July survey of 1,548 business leaders by ResumeBuilder.com. It's a shifting environment, Zabriskie said, president and owner of Maryland-based Business Training Works, Inc., a workplace etiquette and soft skills firm that has recently gotten more requests from companies for basic civility training. We're all coming back together. We want to make sure we have a shared agreement about what's acceptable and what's not acceptable in the workplace. Being someone who's been on the receiving end of complaints about other coworkers' conduct and their complete lack of discipline and hygiene, I can tell you this is an ongoing issue. There is no cure for it. It is something that needs a therapeutic approach, as far as I'm concerned. Before the pandemic, the Swan School of Protocol would go out to workplaces about once or twice a month to help train staff on business etiquette. Now it gets 4 to 6 requests a month, said Elaine Swan, founder of the Carlsbad Training Institute. The soft skills that are necessary to have a harmonious workplace were not being used when everyone was home working in their pajamas, she said. Utilizing those skills is almost like a muscle. If you're not using that muscle, it can become weak. I would say that's pretty close to me comparing it to being therapeutic. You have to do something therapeutically. There's no one-time cure for a lack of etiquette. You have to be constantly trained on it. Everyone does. Because people become indulgent. They really do. And the more you can close your office door and shut out the entire workforce, the less receptive you are to things that happen around you. Business etiquette training can include a wide variety of topics: professionalism in the office and on Zoom, giving feedback, proper dress code, remembering names, and how to conduct oneself during a business lunch. Common complaints from hybrid and in-office employees included loud talking, office gossip, and not being prepared for meetings, according to human resource consulting firm Robert Half. The meeting etiquette faux pas included arriving late and dominating the conversation. To be clear, bad behavior didn't start with the pandemic. It sure did not. There have always been messy kitchens or loquacious colleagues, and to some extent, workers may have gotten used to solitary setups at home and are now less tolerant of typical office distractions such as crunchy chips or coworker chatter. Now, this comes from Fast Company. Why does it seem like Gen Z workers are always late? As the business mantra goes, early is on time and on time is late. That's me. For some Gen Z workers, though, late is the new on time. And we all know people who do this. They love to come in late because we all know that this is some sort of strategy that some people have read from like Lao Tzu or something like that, or some sort of tactic that they've employed because they heard it gives them dominance and some sort of a sense of authority and autonomy. In a new survey commissioned by Meeting Canary, an AI-powered work meeting behavior analyzer, 47% of Gen Z respondents said they believe that arriving 5 to 10 minutes late is still considered punctual. The survey also found that 70% of baby boomers believe that being right on time is actually late, opening up a generational workplace battle, which is what I was talking about when I said louche. So, is Gen Z really late to meetings? Fast Company spoke with industry experts to determine whether there is truly a tardy generation and what the stereotype might say about the state of young people at work. Gen Z and boomers have different timing values. Yes, we come from different generations. We did the same things when we were younger. So I don't ever remember looking at my watch and having to get to a meeting on time when I was 22 years old. But, as you hit 40 something, you start wondering where these people are because I have things to do. Gen Z and boomers have different timing values. The Meeting Canary study, which surveyed 1,000 people from different age groups across the UK, found a significant generational divide in opinions on timeliness. When asked how long a meeting time one could arrive before being considered late, 70% of baby boomers responded no time, and that being punctual required arriving early. I'm one of those people, if you say 9 o'clock, I'm there at 8:59. The same option was selected by only 22% of Gen Zers. Laura Van Beers, CEO of Meeting Canary, was unsurprised by the study's outcome. She had seen the timeliness gap firsthand, recounting a story about a colleague closer to the baby boomer generation who ritualistically arrived at meetings before the start time. Closer to the Gen Z side herself, Van Beers would arrive afterward, causing the two to clash. We noticed this ourselves already, Van Beers says. I don't really mind if other people are a bit later, but he is always very frustrated. For some, the issue goes beyond a simple lack of awareness. HR consultant Kate Walker believes that Gen Z's lack of punctuality may be a sign of job boredom, noting obviously there's a lack of engagement, a lack of caring. Maybe this generation is feeling no sense of purpose when they're going into the workplace. Is Gen Z really to blame? Gen Zers have faced their fair share of criticism in the workplace. For instance, a 2023 ResumeBuilder.com survey reported that 74% of managers and business leaders found Gen Z more difficult to work with than other generations. But when it comes to the issue of timeliness, some experts believe that Gen Z is being unjustly stereotyped. Mark Beal, assistant professor of practice at Rutgers University School of Communication, works with Gen Z students every day. Well, la-dee-da. Imagine a professor at a university working with Gen Z students. He sees his students attend class sessions up to 40 minutes before the start of the lecture. Of course, there are stragglers and latecomers, but not at a rate different from any other generation, he says. The majority of the meetings throughout the 30 years of my career rarely, if ever, started on time, Beal says. There's this line where if you're a millennial, a Gen Xer, a boomer, you're always 5 minutes early. I just don't think that's the case. The punctuality debate may also be a sign of Gen Z workers' push to be more effective with their time management. Gen Zers demand a greater work-life balance, and they use tools like generative AI to avoid being bogged down by small tasks. Maybe that meeting your Gen Z intern was running late to could have been an email exchange instead. Maybe 95% of meetings could have been an email instead. That's just my opinion. Gen Z works smarter, not necessarily harder. No, that's a generalization. Beal says, I really do believe that Gen Z is focused on the efficient and productive use of their time. Yes, there's an app for that. Walker, similarly, looks to the older generation of managers to answer the question of lateness. For her, it may be more a question of meeting composition than employee behavior. It could be the managers running bad meetings, she says. Why bother coming on time? This person is not even organized. Well, that's a little bit snarky from both sides, I would say. And now I'm going to close with 4 personality traits that might hold you back from getting promoted. When it comes to getting a promotion at work, several factors can either hold you back or help you get ahead. Now, as someone who's part of the LGBT community, when you're gay at work, you have to be engaged in a different way. You can't just be Jim or Tim or Joe or Bob. You have to be the gay guy who has a little extra oomph in order to get ahead. You can't be Casper Milquetoast. That's my own personal observation. So you have to be engaged, and you have to do stuff with other people, and you have to be part of the community, and you have to display that if you're part of the community. If you're not, some people don't care. But if you want to get noticed, you have to do something that makes you stand out. Elements like your performance and experience play a crucial role in determining your career trajectory, as well as things out of your control, such as the number of available positions and budget constraints. But when it comes to personality, are there traits that might hold you back from being promoted? According to Bonnie Dilber, the recruiting manager for Zapier's business recruiting team, it's important to consider the company you work for, as different traits work better in different environments. For example, if a salesperson fears public speaking, that could hold them back from advancing, but it might not affect someone in a different role that doesn't require frequent speaking. I don't know anybody who's a salesperson who doesn't like talking. Still, when it comes to getting promoted, there are a few traits that will hold someone back in almost any industry. The good news is there are often things you can work to change if getting a promotion is your goal. And I'm just going to list them because they're all kind of obvious. First one is not being receptive to feedback. That's called being obstinate. Being unable to consider other perspectives. That's also being obstinate. Not being willing to learn. Again, you're a stubborn mule. And 4, not expressing you want to be promoted. Well, that's just you being dumb. Telling your manager you want to be promoted can be a hard conversation, but if your goal is to grow, you should let your manager know, as your manager won't know what your career goals are otherwise. Besides, some people want to stay in the same job for many years. After letting your manager know you want to be promoted, align with them around what they would need to see or what the business would need to see in order for that to happen, is the advice given to anybody who wants to get promoted. Well, it's kind of common sense, but I think it needs to be stated because a lot of things that are common sense just aren't that common. Anyway, thanks for listening. See you next time. And as the kiddies say, peace out.